Let's start by reminding ourselves what are the requirements for gender pay reporting. First, all organisations that have over 250 employees in April 2017 are required to report. What you have to report is information about base pay and variable pay between men and women, and also declare that as mean and median figures. In addition, you need to explain how many men and women are employed and paid in quartiles. And what that means is you have to divide your organisation into 4 divisions by pay and explain how many women and men are in the lower quartile, how many are in the 2 middle quartiles, and then how many are in the upper quartile. And all of this has to appear on your website by the 4th of April 2018 and also be published to the government website. Some of our clients have started doing work early on this. What they're finding is that getting the pay data right according to the regulations is a much bigger job than they anticipated. They're also finding, having run the numbers, that the pay gap is bigger than they were anticipating. And they're also finding that looking at example organisations who have reported early, so Bank of England, EasyJet have reported early. There's been quite a lot of coverage on PwC. What they're finding is that the narrative, so the actual explanation as to why the figures are as they are, is at least as important as the numbers themselves. Those are the findings so far. At Innecto, we've developed a 6-step process. So the very first part of the process is to help clients think about gathering the data. Look at the complexities of the reporting requirements. For example, did you know that you have to use pay after salary sacrifice? That's caught quite a few people out. We're then making sure that they audit what they do, so next year they can go back and remember how they treated contractors, impats, expats, those oddities that really can make a difference to the numbers. Once you've got your headline number, at that point you really need to go and talk to the board, sharing understanding about the risk, thinking about your reputation, thinking about how you're going to manage that with your employees and your stakeholders is really key. Then making sure that you've got a narrative that explains why your numbers are as they are and what you want to do about it in the future is important to create some sort of understanding amongst your staff, particularly your female staff if the pay gap is quite big, and ensure that they understand that you have got control of this and we can improve things in the future. Once the numbers are out there, it's easy to sit back and relax, but actually we will be expecting organisations to improve and narrow their pay gap year on year. And if you don't do anything about it, how can you make a difference for next year? So more forward-thinking organisations are doing a proper, thorough equal pay audit. So they're mitigating their risk around equal pay by ensuring that they haven't got anything that makes them uncomfortable. And then secondly, they're thinking more carefully about how they can take control of the numbers in the future. We've done some really interesting work with clients, looking at some areas where men and women's pay may be not as well controlled. Let me give you an example. One of the areas that we spend an awful lot of time on in Reward is the annual pay review, and every decimal point on that gets reviewed. But an interesting question is, how much are you spending outside of your annual pay review on promotions, on ad hoc pay rises, on market rate reviews, on all of that type of thing? And what we found from clients is really interesting, and it's also consistent, which is that the majority of organisations have equal number of pay changes between men and women through the year. So this is outside the annual pay review, it's through the year. But when we look at the amount of money spent on men and women, what we're finding is about 75% of that budget goes to men. And that makes a huge difference to your numbers. And if you want to narrow the pay gap over time, it will be important to start addressing some of those under the water issues that may be quite hard to get to without some proper analysis and analytics work. We've just completed a flash survey, and interestingly, about 50% of the respondents told us that they're not even going to look at this until after Christmas. So that means they're planning to do all the work in the first quarter of 2018. My concern is really they're just putting it off and putting their head in the sand. The information that's around at the moment is helpful, it's current, it means that you can look at your April pay review and April payroll and remember what you did very easily. In 6 months' time, it's all going to seem a very distant memory, and it's going to be much more difficult to do it. The reality is that for most organisations, this has to be on their agenda, and it's something that over a period of time they need to continue to work on. It's no good being one of the losers. We strongly think that there will be winners and losers in this. Some organisations that we're working with are very future facing, and they're really thinking about how can they narrow their pay gap over time. For organisations that are just simply reporting on the numbers and doing no work behind the scenes, they'll gradually find that over 3 years, their pay gap looks worse and worse against those organisations that are actively engaged in it. It's a chance to really put fairness and diversity on your agenda and to use this whole gender pay reporting as a catalyst for change in your organisation and improving the talent pool and improving your pipeline of female talent. So take that opportunity and make the most of it.